Trouble in Paradise podcast is intended for mature audiences. This means you will hear realistic adult language such as and go off. Audience discretion is advised.
What is knob polishing?
You're gonna make me say this. I am a neglected man.
I like to think that I look like a jack, even though my name's really Bob.
Does he have danglers or something?
Well, it's time to go do them lighthouse duties.
Sitting in the cheese at the old Walmart to cool off.
That should be the headline. Man tasered in the nuts after stealing beef.
Yeah, but you're not gonna sit in the cheese. You're not gonna sit in the cheese, and you're not gonna put ribeyes down your pants either.
House cleaning is secondary. So what is the Viagra triangle?
Possibly we aid in your digestion.
I don't know if his little hand is smaller than his little ears or what.
Aw, well maybe he has a syndrome.
Want to go check out my RV? It's parked right around the corner. Because I'm pretty sure that I saw some moose knuckle.
No.
There is absolutely some moose knuckle going on.
My swampy friend. What the hell is a swampy friend?
I know. So they're not going to get any scraping on their shaft.
Yes, I'm going to do a downward dog.
Okay, pretty lady. You had on those gosh darn sexy leather looking shorts.
Ladies and gentlemen, and assholes, gather around. It's time for another action-packed episode of
Trouble in Paradise.
Hi, I'm Nigel Kent.
And I'm Jazmine Starr.
And welcome to Trouble in Paradise.
Our show is a free-thinking, open-minded podcast discussing conspiracy theories, the paranormal, true crimes against humanity, and our only in Florida stories.
And we do have a couple only in Florida stories in the deep dive section of the show tonight.
We do.
Joining us tonight is a very, very special individual, and I mean that in multiple ways. We're talking about Josh Denny, the really, really outspoken, famously canceled comedian. And is it fair to say that you're a libertarian at this point, Josh?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think the only people that will contest that are, other sects of libertarianism, I guess.
You're not a real libertarian.
Yeah, everybody has their weird definition of what that is,
Yep. So it's kind of funny whenever you see those, 4-quadrant political analysis things, and I feel like I've been in one of those 4 quadrants at one point during my life, and I'm kind of just stuck in the middle of all of them. And I hate the word centrist because I often feel like it's a cop-out. You can't be in the middle,
Yeah, centrist is like asexual. Nobody even cares about them when they talk about the LGBTQ. So it's the same thing with centrists in politics. Like centrist just means undecided and can afford to not care, basically.
That's a good way of looking at it. Yeah, can afford not to actually die on any hill because other people are dying in their place.
Yeah, can afford to just stay away from the hills altogether.
So we've got a couple of hills to climb tonight. One of them is it's not a super tall hill, but it's a hill that's likely to get us banished forever from the realm of YouTube because our YouTube overlords are not happy with us. We have 1 strike on our account. We'll see what happens.
We have
after
2 strikes.
Well, we had a warning and a strike.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, not to split hairs or anything.
Well, wow, that's pretty quick. What did you guys get struck down with?
Well, we can't repeat that here.
Yeah,
really?
I can't say the subject,
fact,
but I can tell you that they called it hate speech, and it really wasn't at all.
No, it wasn't.
Well, I just asked because a popular one right now is misinformation. A lot of stuff's just getting labeled as misinformation.
We got one of those too.
Speaking of misinformation, I am going to read our disclaimer right now that says the content presented by Trouble in Paradise contains speculation and conjecture and is not intended as educational material or advice. It is therefore not misinformation and does adhere to YouTube's community guidelines.
Right, which that'll help us to not get bonked. We've read that disclaimer at the beginning of every episode and at the end of every episode since
51. Yeah. 51 was the one that got banned along with 57, I believe.
And we'll tell you offline what we talked about. Like it would make you chuckle, the stuff that we talked about versus what they actually accused us of doing during the episode. It was a big head scratcher. But anyway.
Yeah, it's always, what's weird is I don't know how this is possible or whatever, but people ask me this all the time. They're like, how have you not been banned on all of the platforms? And I'm just like, yeah, that's a great question. But I will tell you, the secret sauce is just being very good at adhering to terms of service. Mm-hmm. And so like for Twitter, for instance, there's a lot of times I'll put content on there that pisses people off, but never is it a violation of terms of service. And it's just because I'm very good at wording things in a way that sort of circumvents that whole terms of service thing. So you can speak sort of hyperbolically. As long as you don't point it in certain directions, you can pretty much avoid any sort of deplatforming.
Well, I'm gonna have to take lessons from Yoda here because I'm in a constant shadow ban on Twitter.
You are, but if you ever watch Tim Pool just about shit his pants because Ian is saying something that Tim knows is against the YouTube terms of service, those are fun. He's like, Ian, I gotta stop you. Like he just like right on his own show cuts off his own co-host and stuff. But
well, we don't pump the brakes here. We just keep on going forward.
Yeah, I always think it's kind of interesting, these truth tellers that still play by the rules, and I would put Tim Pool in that category for sure. There are a lot of them like that where they're just like, well, we don't like this, but we love the money that comes from it. So we'll just continue to go along with it and continue. It's like, of course it's not going to change because you're complicit. It's like the people going, nobody should be forced to get, any sort of medical procedure or take any medicine that they don't want to take. Meanwhile, they're like, I'm in, stick me with the thing and give me the shit. It's like, well, yeah, but it's because people like you keep going along with it that it's not going to change.
Well, or they refuse to say how they really feel or what they would advise their friends or their children to do when asked, hey, should I undergo this procedure? And when you get in front of the camera, it's a total different story because there's dollars flowing your way. And Tim Pool is a millionaire because of YouTube. I kind of don't blame him for not wanting to nuke that.
No, I get it. I understand that. It's just like, but just be transparent about that and go, as much as we don't like it, we're pussies, and we just admit you're a pussy. That's all I want people to do.
They should just flash it across the screen.
I'm a pussy who likes money. That should be what the super at the bottom of his screen says all the time. These things are wrong, but I'm a pussy that likes money.
I'm a pussy that has no money.
You could pretty much put that at the bottom of almost every podcast or live streamer, under the sun now that's making any kind of money. Because you make money by playing by the rules. It's very hard to make money not playing by the rules.
Yeah, that's for sure. And speaking of rules, we have a little game that we'd like to play with you.
Yes.
As time permits. This is an old FM radio shock jock style game called True Fact or Bullcrap. And the object of the game is to try to get as many correct guesses from you. We're both going to present you with statements, and you have to guess whether those statements are true fact or bullcrap. And whoever gets more correct guesses from you will be tonight's champion in the Josh Denny edition of True Fact or Bullcrap. Now, I don't know what Jazmine has prepped for you, and Jazmine doesn't know what I have prepped for you.
Okay.
But we each have three True Fact or Bullcraps, and then there's one tiebreaker that we've prepared in case we're tied up at the end of it. So, as always, on Trouble in Paradise, ladies first.
All right. Josh. Eli's Cheesecake made the inaugural cheesecake for both Clinton and Obama, which contained 155 pounds of Philadelphia cream cheese.
Did you say for both Clinton and Obama?
Yes.
That seems like a random enough fact. But they're a president apart, so I would say, why would it have not happened in the middle? I'm going to say not true.
It is true.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Based on the cake's ingredients, that seems unlikely. In addition to 100 pounds of buttercream frosting, bakers used 155 pounds of cream cheese, 50 pounds of butter, 40 pounds of sour cream, 20 pounds of flour, 15 pounds of chocolate chips, 50 pounds of powdered sugar, 240 eggs, and 2 cups of pure vanilla.
That sounds like a dinosaur heart attack.
Yeah, I was actually in D.C. For the inauguration
Of President Clinton?
Yeah, like they have like a whole thing downtown, like set up and everything, or not downtown, but near like the reflecting
The mall,
pond.
yeah.
Yeah, because before all the political crap.
There was political crap then too. It was just
but-
different. It was politics, not politicizing everything else.
Right, but there was a big concert that you could go to. And they had it set up there at the Lincoln Memorial and everything, and they had all these exhibits, and I actually got to see this cheesecake on exhibit, and it like I was a kid then, so
Were there
it,
like flies flying around
it floored me the size of this cheesecake, so it's kind of what made me think of this.
Stuck with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, well, Clinton was the favorite at the time, so I have to imagine it was a pretty peaceful transition of power.
So
Yeah, it was definitely a
Sounds like it was loaded with saxophone and cheesecake from the sounds of it.
yeah, remember his what was that? Arsenio Hall, I think. What the hell
where he
happened
played-
to that
he
guy?
played the sax. Yeah, so
Yeah.
Arsenio's still around. He was just in the Coming to America sequel.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
oh yeah.
There's still movie theaters. All right. All right, my turn. True fact or bull crap, Josh. The oldest continually illuminated electric incandescent light bulb in the world has been in failure-free operation for 120 years.
I'm gonna go with bullcrap.
That's actually a true fact.
Well, then you're tied.
Actually, if you check it out, it's centennialbulb.org. And it's in California. Where's Livermore? Do you know where Livermore,
that's
California?
I'm not sure, but that's hard to believe that there's been no blackout of that thing in all those years.
Well, they have it connected to a battery and a generator as well. So, and apparently what they do is they run it at extremely low voltage. And I found out about this because I was watching a documentary about planned obsolescence. And the light bulb was like the original experiment in industrial collusion to make products suck on purpose so that people have to buy them over and over. But yeah, true fact, it's still burning. And there's a webcam of it, centennialbulb.org.
Yikes.
All
Talk
right.
about websites that don't need to exist.
All right, Josh. Our second one here. The Philly Fanatic is the only mascot the Phillies have had in Major League Baseball history.
I want to say that's true.
That is going to be bullcrap.
Wow, really? Who did they have
Yes.
before that?
The Fanatic emerged April 25th in 1978.
Yeah, that was the 70s.
Yeah, prior to the Fanatic, Philadelphia Phil and Philadelphia Phyllis, a pair of siblings,
No. Oh, gross.
a pair of siblings dressed in 18th century garb to invoke the city's revolutionary spirit from 1776. The pair were in the team logo from 76 through 78.
Wow.
Well, see, those are mascots, plural. So I think that technically I'm still right.
You get a half a point. Do we give
Also,
him half a point?
Oh, it's so gross.
Yeah, siblings.
Philadelphia
Phyllis.
Phyllis. Ugh.
Yeah,
It sounds like
Philadelphia Phil and Phyllis.
like if you were a hooker and you could not have a cool name under any circumstances, you'd be
Yeah,
Philadelphia
check out
Phyllis.
Philadelphia Phyllis over there. Ugh.
Yeah.
That is gross.
All right, Josh. A flibberty gibbet is a word that refers to a flighty or whimsical person, usually a young woman.
No idea. I'm going to go with true.
It is true. In fact, flibberty gibbet in modern use, it's used as a slang term, especially in England, for a gossipy or overly talkative person. Now, I had never heard this word prior to Jazmine and I doing there's another word game we do once in a while, which we try to find words that we know that the other person has never heard of, and then make up a bullshit definition for them and try to get them to buy it. But yeah, flibberty gibbet.
Yeah, you nailed it.
There you go, flibberty.
All right. Number 3, Philadelphia is considered the second most haunted city in America, with Salem, Massachusetts coming in at number 1.
I want to say it can't be. No, I gotta say that's bull crap because I'm pretty sure there's other parts of the country that are considered way more haunted than Philadelphia.
Well, it is bullcrap.
Score 1 for Jazmine.
Yeah. Frightening Philly. Philadelphia is said to be the most haunted city in the U.S.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
with the highest density of haunted houses. It also comes to Eastern. It also is home of Eastern State Penitentiary that opens for spooky tours during Halloween season. I think if anybody follows like the paranormal stuff, they're well familiar with Eastern State Penitentiary.
Yeah, see, but it's like, how are we measuring this? Because if we're just measuring off of the stupidity of people in Philadelphia, then I believe it. Because they're like, yeah, I don't know if you've noticed, but my grandmother's house is haunted. It's like, yeah, okay, dummy. Yeah, we was out on the porch drinking Yinglings, and I heard a rattle, and I remember hearing that when I was like 3 too.
Yeah, definitely haunted.
Yeah. Well, Yingling, if you drink enough Yinglings, anything's haunted.
Haunted with bullshit is what it's haunted with.
Yingling was illegal in Florida in Ohio until about 5 or 6 years ago. Like,
why?
Yeah.
Too high alcohol content?
No, it was just it was illegal for political reasons because the people who made Great Lakes Brewing and some of the Michigan and Ohio brewers didn't want Yuengling to come in because they knew it was going to nuke everything and just take over. And so they used to control who could import beer from out of state. I guess they still do. But there was a huge, huge demand. So they added Yuengling to the list of beers that could be brought into Ohio like 7 or 8 years ago. And as predicted, it pretty much took over. I still call it Yuengling.
Yeah, Yuengling I know was very hard to get outside of Pennsylvania, like most of my young adulthood, because I lived in different places around the country, and I'd have friends from Philly come visit. We'd go out to bars and stuff, and I don't drink, but they would try to order a Yuengling, and they'd be like, "What?" They just didn't. They never even heard of it.
All right, next up, Argle Bargle. Have you ever heard of Argle Bargle, Josh?
Nope.
All right, Argle Bargle is a household game popular in the 40s and 50s, which combines elements of both pickup sticks and jacks.
God, I have no idea. I'll say it's bullshit.
It's bullshit.
Okay.
It's
like
actually
something you'd make up.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of like Jankum. It's basically a bunch of conversation or long-lasting talk.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
So if you ever get sued,
Jankum actually is fermented shit, but spelled with a U. It's a podcast by me.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
A poocast.
Well, I mean, if you're typing fast, I guess it could be a poocast.
Well,
It's actually a really good show. You guys need to subscribe. Subscribe to Jankum on all the major podcatchers. That's Josh's. You doing that weekly or twice a month or?
No, it's weekly. We took last week off. I had some scheduling conflicts with people and ended up just pushing my episodes back. So we'll have a new episode. I think I'm gonna have an unreleased episode of my old podcast come out in place of a Jankum tomorrow, and then because I had this one I did right before I rebranded everything to Jankum, and then I never released it, and I was like, well, that's a good episode though, so I want to put that out with Nick Searcy, so that'll be out tomorrow, and then I have a bunch more coming, weekly. So Mondays, because it's the shittiest day of the week.
It is. It's also my only day off. I think that when you talk about a weekly podcast and you say, well, we didn't do an episode last week, that sounds like my weekly podcast too. Big Tech Watchdog, thanks for joining me on that a few weeks back. All right,
it's so tricky. Like, when you do guests, that's what's so smart about the way Tim Dillon does his, is because he just never has. I mean, he has guests sometimes, but they just do the show, him and his producer, and that's it. So they're not reliant on people showing up or, knowing how to use a fucking calendar properly. I can't tell you how many podcast people I engage with that just don't even know how, like some people that have podcasts way bigger than mine, like massive podcasts, don't know how to send a calendar attachment. It's like, what are you doing, dude? Hire a girl or something to handle your you can't send me a calendar attachment for your show. It's insane.
I happen to be sitting to the left of a girl who doesn't know how to use a calendar attachment. So,
Jesus Christ.
but we're figuring it out. Yeah, we learn from each other.
Calendly.com. They're not a sponsor of mine, but it is the easiest calendar booking software, and it's completely free.
Calendly, not a sponsor.
Calendly, not a sponsor. Check them out. It literally, you can just type your information and send me an invite, and it's in both of our calendars. It's so easy.
All right, so we are tied. We ended up tied at one apiece. And do you have your clincher?
I'm just gonna blame I'm just gonna blame it on the blonde.
Well, I mean that's what I'm blonde too, though. I'm just wearing. Oh, okay.
All right, since we're tied, the tiebreaker. In 1930, the cheesesteak was invented by Pat Oliveri, a hot dog vendor and namesake to Pat's King of Steaks. The world's largest cheesesteak. In 1988, Philadelphia's home football team, the Eagles, helped create the largest sandwich that was, shocker, the length of a football field.
Wow.
Oh, man. Well, see, I think that's riddled with incorrect stuff, so I'm going to say no.
Oh, you know her technique.
Yeah, there's so many pieces in there that I can't believe all that's true.
All of that is true.
See, that's how she does it.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yes.
So did they put the sandwich on the field?
Do they really have Pat's listed as the inventor of the cheesesteak? Because that is very suspect to me.
They do. Pat Oliveri. They said he was a hot dog vendor, and that one day he threw some steak down on the griddle and threw it in a sandwich. And it was a cab driver that came by in 1930 that smelled the sandwich and wanted one, and that's how it was invented.
I don't know.
I don't know very much about cheesesteaks or Philadelphia.
Yeah, I would think that they would advertise that better, and that their place would not be such a shithole in Philadelphia. Because here's my childhood memory of Pat's. It's gotten much better over the years, but my childhood memory of Pat's in the 80s is going there after an Eagles game and sitting inside. They have like a little screened in patio where you now stand to order. But when I was a kid, they had like a bar around the windowsill and like stools where you could sit and eat. And I just remember that thing being covered with bugs, like literally like Moses level infestation of bugs around that entire thing. And every light, you're just hearing buzzing of bugs dying in lights throughout the entire place. And I remember as a kid being like, no cheesesteak is good enough to tolerate this grossness.
Well,
and
that's what I was wondering about the cheesecake in
growing
Washington,
up in
D.C.
Pennsylvania and having been to Philly and to like several times into the games and stuff like that, it doesn't surprise me that there were flies everywhere.
No, it was, and these weren't like they were like locusts. It wasn't even like flies. These were like massive bugs. I don't know. Maybe I was there during one of the Philadelphia plagues. I have no idea. I remember every time we go there, I have PTSD. Like when we went out for my childhood buddy Richie's wedding a few years back, we were staying like 5 minutes from there. And my girlfriend had never had like a real Philadelphia cheesesteak before. So we all piled in the car at like midnight after the wedding and just drove into the city to Pat's. And it wasn't as bad as I remembered as a kid. And it was tasty. But I just remember being like, still having the PTSD of, standing in line and just being like, feeling like I was going to get swarmed at any second.
Well, I mean, that sounds like a lot of big cities. Although it also sounds like the mosquitoes down here in the Everglades too.
Right.
So,
yeah.
All right. So
flying vaccinators.
This will be the clincher, if I can win. Should I hit him with the coming tonight, or should I hit him with the titty nope?
The what?
The coming tonight or the titty nope?
They both sound great to me. So.
All right, we're gonna go with the titty nope.
Okay.
TITTYNOPE. Titty nope means the last remaining bit of a supply, aka there's just a titty nope of gas left in the tank?
I'm gonna say no. That's bullshit. That sounds made up too.
And that's how Jazmine wins, because that's a true fact.
Yeah.
It's a slang. These are like old English slangs though. Like, I mean, a titty nope would be like, man,
It's like Gardy Lou.
if all I'm going to get's a titty, I don't know if I have the strength or the willingness tonight. I think titty nope, you know.
Titty nope sounds like an old slang for homosexuals. Yeah.
Titty? Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we used to call them pussy yucks, and now we call them titty.
Titty nopes. Well, then I have to tell you what coming tonight is.
Okay.
Coming tonight is
It's my new show on OnlyFans, everybody. Check it out.
It's
Heard of
actually
next week tonight. Now check out Coming Tonight.
Actually, yeah, next week tonight. Before we get into coming tonight, how is next week tonight going?
It's good. I have a new episode in the can here ready to get uploaded. But yeah, it's funny. We were talking about this before the show. Like, one of the things that's been tricky about trying to film is when I have these outbreaks from allergies, like my whole face gets completely flushed and I look like I've been beaten. So that's always puts the kibosh on filming for you when you're like, oh, I have scheduled on the calendar to film on, like, say, Wednesday night. And then I realized the thing I ate Tuesday night had gluten or psyllium or something I'm allergic to. And then I wake up and my whole face is broken out and swollen and hives. And if you notice the last episode I did it. I was like, fuck it, I'll do it anyway. And I had like all these red marks and stuff from where I had like scratched sores, and I had like a pimple on the side of my nose from being broken out. So yeah, it's really gross. I try not to film the show looking like a leper, but it might get to a point where that's how I do it. Maybe I'll lean into it. I'll start dressing like Igor.
So speaking of psyllium and stuff like that, I mean, what do you think do you have any ideas why this particular malady has become so much more common in recent years?
Are you talking about like allergies?
Well, just like wheat allergies in particular. And
well, I mean, not to get us kicked off for medical misinformation, but I will tell you, anecdotally speaking, I have about 3 or 4 friends now that since they had COVID, they now have celiac disease or some sort of autoimmune condition that is dietary. So I don't know if there's a correlation. I actually read, and I'm trying to participate in this study, but there's a study that's happening right now at Oxford where they're actually investigating this because they have something like out of 100 people with COVID, like 32 of them had developed some long-lasting autoimmune response, and of those 32, it's like 26 of them were celiacs. So there is some sort of emergent science or emergent studies that are happening. Is this a long-term side effect of COVID? And I think I had some insensitivity or some problems with gluten before having COVID, because I always had a violent reaction to drinking beers or dark beers or anything like that. And I'm sure I always had some digestive reaction to pizza or bread or whatever. But after this last bout with COVID in June, it's like this now, where like not only do I break out everywhere, but if I don't take a Zyrtec or something after I eat it, my throat will swell up a little bit. I'll get real mucousy. My hands and feet will swell to the point where I can barely make a fist. And those effects, like if I eat a significant amount of that stuff, it can last for 4 or 5 days. So it's just been crazy balancing. And like I told you guys before the pod, so you cut out gluten, and then I realized that most of the gluten-free substitutes have this ingredient in it called psyllium, which was the only thing that gave me a violent reaction before I had COVID. I took like a Metamucil one time and had this horrendous allergic reaction to it. Had to take like allergy pills. It wasn't EpiPen, but it was pretty close to that. And I took a Benadryl, and then I was fine. But so now I'm finding out, that there's so many other things that are in like these gluten-free substitutes that are, I'm also allergic to, or that are just as bad. So it's like literally every single thing I put in my body now, I have to read the label. And I found this cool app on my iPhone now that allows me to just scan. It's called Allergen Inside, and I can scan the label of anything, and it's got all my allergens listed, and it'll trigger anything that's on there. So
that's super handy. It does.
Yeah, I'm one of those bubble boy bitches now who's just like, I can't have it. It'll make me sick. So gross.
That's a pretty good John Travolta impression, as a matter of fact. Sandy, like. So, it's funny. I was actually about to segue into our next segment, but I skipped over Coming Tonight. Which is actually a brownish material made of mostly iron and magnesium, named after a man named John Cummings, who there's a town also named Cummington named after him. But
I'm pretty sure this guy found a way to crystallize his own shit and convince people it was a mineral.
There you go. Well, you know what? We should do a podcast where we basically spoof the Jankum podcast, and we'll just call it Coming Tonight.
There you go.
Well, here you're bringing like the titty whatever
titty nope.
Titty Nope and Coming Tonight and everything, and I left Philadelphia Steamer out of mine just because I thought we'd be going totally down the wrong path here. So,
everybody knows what a Philadelphia Steamer is.
Well, yeah.
What's it? Yeah, it's like a Cleveland steamer, except Phil and Phyllis dress up like 1800s colonials before they do it.
Exactly.
So I was noticing. So right after the Coming Tonight thing, I had this note randomly appear in my OneNote, and it says, "Let's talk about minimum wage." But I refuse to go there right now. Absolutely refuse, because I'm going to get fired up and we'll end up talking for like 3.5 hours. So
yeah,
You want to talk about Rose McGowan?
I do want to talk about Rose McGowan.
All right, let's do it.
Yikes.
We're going to skip over the controversial subject of minimum wage and talk about Rose McGowan.
Yeah, I don't think it's that controversial. There's pretty much a couple different economic thoughts on it, and one of them's right and the other one's stupid. Pretty easy.
Agree.
I just saved you 3.5 hours of rage.
Probably not, but you're right about what you said, though. One belief set is right, and the other one is kind of a head scratcher. And we're living in the head scratcher, but that's also what's going on right now. So,
well, that's the problem when you allow the government to print its own money. That's inevitably where we were absolutely going to end up in this place.
Well, they're using. It's basically liquidity, though. It's not really money. It's currency. It's IOUs. It's not actual money. But we must move on from this. I don't want to get a third strike. So let's go the other route and talk about Rose McGowan, because that definitely won't get us a third strike. Rose McGowan made headlines as one of Harvey Weinstein's accusers and a prominent figure in the Me Too movement, which I got to admit, I got sick of the Me Too thing, because I thought it went a little bit, at least in pop culture, a little bit beyond the basic complaint of men using power to take advantage of women and traffic women. But I thought it kind of went beyond and basically pointed the crosshairs at men who had done nothing wrong and, were simply just being men.
Well, and see, that's where I have to disagree with you, because I think it also gave a little bit of being a woman an opportunity to actually say, you know what, like, I was a victim of assault. And that is something that's in my, like, truthfully in my history, and where I can say, you know what, me too. That happened to me too. Mm-hmm. So I think that there's some empowerment in that. That's just my personal belief.
No, you're absolutely right. I think the tragedy is when it becomes politicized, and when people take that emotional response that people have from experiencing something terrible in their own lives and turn that response into a political mechanism. That's one of the problems.
I'm not gonna say Me Too and then march around, like downtown Los Angeles with all my clothes off. I know, right? That's not where I would go with that.
Yeah, with a giant like vagina helmet.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not me.
It gets you scratching your head a little bit, but that's Rose's background. So
that whole movement has really turned me into a total titty nope, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, right. There's a meme. I'm sure you've seen this by now, Josh. But like a couple weeks ago, there was like a meme of all these women protesting the status quo, and they were like basically lying on the ground in the middle of the street, like a few dozen or maybe 100 of them, holding signs that said that they're on strike, that they're not going to have sex with men, that they're going to withhold sex from their boyfriends and husbands and stuff. And like all of them, like every single one of these women was like 290 pounds wearing yoga pants and stuff. And I'm like, one of the commenters was like, you don't actually have to protest because they're not going to give it to you. I just thought it was pretty funny.
They should all be fired.
Yeah, I mean, a million comedians have made that joke. I think Natasha Leggero was one of the first who was like, "Why is your one friend that's the most worried about rape also your most disgusting friend?" Which is funny because like she made that joke and it kind of skipped over everyone, and then like men started making similar jokes and they tried to cancel everybody for them. But
it's the privilege.
So
it's the privilege that you're born with. I mean, they talk about white privilege. There's also female privilege. There is black privilege, certainly within the comedic community. Well, and I think if you get a couple comedians together, you get a white comedian, a black comedian, and an Asian comedian together in a group, and they're all going to admit that they can land certain jokes better because of their race.
Oh, certainly. Certainly, yeah. I mean, you know, there are black comedians who I know for a fact are doing jokes that are written by like white writers, and the white writers give them that material because they know they're not going to be able to land it as well as the black comedian. You know, Chappelle's Show was a lot of that. Like a lot of the good stuff on Chappelle's Show was written by a comic named Neil Brennan. And to avoid having any of those you wrote this and I wrote this arguments, you know, Dave and Neil never assigned accreditation. What is that the right thing? Credit to a specific bit, right? So they were always like written by Neil and Dave. But there are definitely ones you can kind of tell have Neil's sort of touch on them if you've watched his stand-up and stuff. You know which ones are kind of like his vibe. And the black white supremacist bit was one of Neil Brennan's babies, and that's like one of the most famous Chappelle Show sketches, and it was written by a white dude. And the reality is, you know, the audience and people in general just need to get over the idea that the color of the comic determines whether or not something is appropriate. I mean, that's just fucking stupid. That your color of your skin really doesn't have anything to do with what your life experiences are or what your lens is like. And so, you know, the idea that, you know, that your skin color alone determines what experiences you have and whether or not that translates into something funny, that itself is a bigoted perspective.
Well, that's true. I mean, yet you watch people have a bigoted response all day long because, like I was telling you earlier, like you could be the. So at my shop, I've got an Italian guy, a Mexican guy, and me, and we do all day long is have this triad of jokes going back and forth at each other, and everything's funny. And at the end of the day, like we all understand that, you know, if a guy has a beef with something we said, we're just going to treat it like like three guys and say, hey man, I didn't appreciate what you said, and it's okay between the three of us. Now you take that into a big audience, and you get like a guy like me, and if I'm sitting in a black comedy club that has a black comic and a room full of black folks, there's a good chance I'm going to get picked on, and even though I don't like how I'm getting picked on, there's a good chance I'm going to laugh at it because it is funny, even if it makes me uncomfortable. Yeah, and the reverse is true too. I mean, we've seen that at the comedy club in Naples too, where
I just got picked out on Friday.
Was that the Jamie Kennedy show?
No, it was with Tracy Bobolek.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Yeah.
Rose McGowan, Me Too. So the interesting thing about Rose McGowan is that she has been remarkably credited. She has been in, I mean, lots and lots and lots of different productions. She's done everything from TV, live action, lots of movies. She's been in everything from Encino Man up until about 2018, 2019, when her career seemed to take a little bit of a dive. And I was talking about Rose with Jazmine because Rose has been this kind of outspoken, like almost conspiracy theorist on Twitter.
Oh, she's been essentially banned. I mean, she's on there, but you have to look her up. Her tweets won't appear.
Oh, yeah. Rose McGowan, one of the most prolific actresses of the last 30 years, is shadow banned on Twitter.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Well, you know why that is recently.
Well,
she wasn't shadow banned when she was being anti-Trump.
She went after Billy and Hillary.
Yeah, she wasn't shadow banned then. She's shadow banned now because she's on the right. She's palling around with people like Dave Rubin and Larry Elder, and was critical of Gavin Newsom and was one of the major whistleblowers that Gavin Newsom's wife is connected to Harvey Weinstein, and tried to get Rose to stop talking about Harvey Weinstein, and so which by the way, obviously the mainstream media chose not to cover it all going into the recall election, but it was out there, and it's just the thing that a lot of people don't realize is that there's a great video, you can find it probably on Reddit or whatever, about the 4 families that have run California for the last over 150, maybe 200 years. Mm-hmm. And it's essentially the Gettys, the Newsoms, the Pelosi's, and then maybe one other person, it's like Johnson or something. But anyway, it essentially goes back to, it's like a builder, and then Newsom's family was all politicians, and then Pelosi married. So essentially, and who was the Brown? I think Brown is the other one. So Jerry Brown, and who was before Jerry Brown, Pat Brown or whatever. But anyway, essentially, California politics and big business have been run by the same 4 families for the last several, I think millennia, but century. So
I mean, if that were possible, then if it was millennia, then Josh, we have been greatly deceived.
No, for the last, it feels like a fucking millennia. I'll tell you that.
Right? Yeah.
But yeah. So when you go from being the mouthpiece against the president that everybody hates, which they loved, to being the mouthpiece against the corrupt governor that's destroying the state of California. It's amazing how quick that shadow ban comes.
Well,
down.
look at they did the same thing with Ye. I mean, look at Kanye West. It's I mean, I get.
Did
Kanye,
you just call him Ye?
Yay, Ye. Come on, man. I'm sitting down here in the Everglades.
That C on your hat stands for Caucasian.
Yes, it does. It does. You know what? You could call him whatever you like. I'm gonna call him Ye. And I'll live with it. It's fine.
His name is the Lord Jesus Christ. No, I'm kidding.
How am I going to get the level of trolls that Josh has unless I start making screw ups like Ye? I mean, that's a down payment on that, man. Starting the troll club, troll army, Nigel Kent.
Ye.
So
probably what he said after his divorce got finalized. He probably did say. Ye.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Is his divorce finalized? Are they done?
Yeah, I think they're all the way done. Well, yeah, when you have that much money, it's just just cut me to check, motherfucker, and let's go on with our shit.
And so he's in Wyoming with some personnel carriers, a couple of Sherman tanks, and about 50 armed guards, right? Out in a big
yeah,
ranch.
He's got a real. I'm gonna tell you something. That dude might be the next David Koresh. Nobody's talking about it, but Kanye's got the Koresh compound starting in Wyoming, and he's got his Sunday service to start with. But I'm gonna tell you, when the shit hits the only thing keeping that guy from total David Koresh situation was the fact that he was married to a pretty prominent woman, and now that he's on his own doing his own thing, he's got all that money, and he thinks himself a godlike figure. We are headed all the way to Waco Part 2. I promise.
Well, I hope not, because Waco Part 1 was pretty fucked up. I mean,
yeah.
Although it did have one if there was one crack in the clouds with Waco, it was the fact that it revealed a really, really deep divide between the FBI and the ATF, which we've talked about with a couple of people that we know.
We did an episode on it.
Yeah.
The difference is there was no Twitter for David Koresh to be tweeting about what was actually happening from the inside of the compound when they were being invaded. And
Absolutely.
so, that's what would be way different with Kanye this time around. But yeah, he's definitely bordering on cult level stuff. That's for sure.
Well, speaking of cults, Rose
McGowan and apparently Julian Assange both were raised in the same cult. Have you heard about this, Josh?
Yeah. What was the name of it? I remember reading about it.
It's called COG, COG, or Children of God. It was formed in 1968 as Teens for Christ by a guy named David Brant Berg. The group initially consisted of a group of runaway hippies and was founded on the concepts of salvation, spiritual revolution, and a total distrust of the outside world. And that does sound like a cult. They changed their name to Children of God and grew exponentially. Exact figures are disputed, but several reports estimate that the group at its peak boasted between 15 and 19,000 followers worldwide, all of which lived in communes, didn't work, nor send their kids to school. At the core of the swift growth was a strategy Berg himself described as flirty fishing. This is what you were talking about earlier, which consisted of him ordering the females in the group to recruit men from the outside by engaging in sexual activities with them. COG male members were allowed to have more than one wife. I mean, this is kind of similar to the Branch Davidians in a way.
Right. Yeah, but they would send the women out into bars and essentially, like they said, flirty fishing, but use them as like bait to sleep with these women and then bring them into the Children of God church cult.
Yeah. There's like a million. We've seen enough of these documentaries now to know there's like a million telltale signs of like you're in a cult. But to me, the one that should be obvious is like, and I get to sleep with everybody's wives. It's like, okay, this is a cult.
Yeah,
like that should be the one where everyone looks around and goes, nah, it's a cult now. So none of that.
Or if you can't get out, or if you're not allowed to talk about it. I think that's the other big one. It's like,
but that was the one with like the Keith Raniere thing with the Nexium cult. It was like it started out feeling like some multi-level marketing thing and almost like a weird sort of Scientology play of like, we'll help you in the industry of Hollywood and show business, and we'll give you the tools you need to succeed and the confidence and etc. Look, one of our main people was like an uncredited actress in Star Wars, and it's like,
I think it was Star Trek though, wasn't it?
No, it was Star Wars. It was in the prequels.
She was I read the story like a year and a half ago, so I'm like way mum on the details. But yeah, I definitely read that, and it was this guy kind of had like the Ted Bundy glasses and everything, like the square lens glasses and stuff. Yeah. So this stuff is real. But I'd kind of like to find out how it differs from the mainstream politicians who are running around doing the same exact shit, except it's openly accepted.
Well, what's interesting in that none of these documentaries really get into is like, why are women in particular susceptible to these kinds of? Because if you look at the Nexium thing, it started with the women and then they brought their husbands in. It was the same thing with the Rajneesh. If you watch, what was that great documentary? What was it? Wild Wild Country on Netflix, which was about the oh God, what was their name? The name of that cult.
What was it called? Wild.
Yeah, Wild Wild Country, I think it was called.
So there's some common thread between all of them.
Yeah, but what was the name of their cult? So his name was Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, and he had this. Yeah, it was like in Oregon, in the Oregon desert. They had this big, and this guy had like women killing for him, but like there is something to be said for the fact that a lot of these cults start with some male leader and end up with a bunch of women following them. You know, and then to in some cases to like some real severe ends. Like this one woman that was like the Rajneesh's right-hand woman, like I think murdered somebody for him, or at least ordered the murder of someone on his behalf and did time for it as well. So
I mean, so gosh, that sounds an awful lot like I don't, do I say the D word? Can I say the D word on YouTube?
Yeah.
It sounds like Democrat politics, what you just described. And
well, it is interesting how there is a tremendous push for acquiring the attention of women in that party. Whereas like almost you could argue on the opposite side, when Trump's a guy who starts out his campaign with something like grab him by the pussy, he's not necessarily pandering. But I view a lot
that's
of
not pandering at all.
Not at all. It's the opposite, really. But like that, I think that's where a lot of the pro-choice capitulation to women on the left is all about, just acquiring the vote and amassing this sense of like belonging to this party by giving them almost like more autonomy than the natural law should provide. So it's like saying, you know, well, you have, I mean, think about this just for 1 second from the most radical perspective. The Democratic Party believes the right thing to do is to give women a power that exists nowhere else in our society and law, which is to take a life without repercussion. It doesn't exist anywhere else in the law. Now, that's a pretty fucking powerful sales pitch to get women on board with your party, is by extending them an omnipotence that does not exist anywhere else in society.
Well, it kind of makes you wonder if there isn't an incongruent projection of sexual addiction between men and women, because if women are allowed off the hook without any consequences at the expense of another human life, and again, I'm strictly talking about consensual sex here, but if that's right, if that's the bankroll for getting pregnant so that you can have fun one night, then I mean, what the hell is the cost of an actual human life? And not to go like full blown into pro-choice versus pro-life, because I think we all stand probably on the same side of that dividing line.
Well, and it's been talked to death. I mean, I've talked it to death on podcasts for the last month. So,
okay. So Jankum, everybody follow Jankum.
Yeah, you can.
And,
there's a good one with me and Lauren Chen where we talk about it pretty extensively, and you know. But what more along the lines of what we're talking about in terms of like cult-like behavior, there is sort of this weird, it is, and this is what is interesting to me is like, when you talk about like the mentality of women who follow like one sort of cult versus the other, right? Because there are a lot of women that they say are on the conservative cult now, but those women all seem like sort of radical individualists. Whereas on the other side, there is this sense of like overwhelming collectivism, right? Like there are women for Trump aren't putting on matching hats and marching through downtown LA.
That's fair.
But
yeah.
Women on the other side, it's this very sort of cult of collectivism. And it's almost like this idea of like, as long as we can get enough people to agree to something, doesn't matter what it is. And it doesn't matter even if it's morally right. It's just about amassing power. And, you know, that's sort of been the Democratic playbook forever, is to just, you know, pander to these groups that do have more of a herd mentality or a group mentality. Like there is something to be said. And now you got to be careful about how you say this because people will try to spin it as eugenics. But there is something to be said about the familial nature of different cultures and there being this sort of hive collective, sort of like, well, we vote as a tribe, we vote as a group, right? So like you look unions, at like Catholics and unions and all of these things that exist on the left are about collectivism and about when they say democracy, they're really talking about a majority rules. Whereas on the other side,
as opposed to an agreeable caucus that has negotiated things across multiple issues.
Or first deciding principles and then making the judgments based off of the agreed upon principles rather than just majority rules. And this is why we see things like what's commonly referred to as cancel culture, which is really just majority rules, because it can completely flip on its head the next day, right? Like, look at
and
all
the
of
majority is defined upon the line of amplification. In other words, if you're loud enough to shout somebody down, then you are the majority, even though you're supposed to have an equal voice when it comes to voting and things like that. Like,
well, so you're talking about something that's even more evil, removed from the concept of an actual majority, but you're talking about a perceived majority.
yes.
So, that it could be like 3 loud flies speak for thousands because they are the loudest. And so that becomes even more pernicious, because now you have this sort of representative hive mind of saying, well, we know that we mostly agree on these things, so our 3 loudest people will just feel free to speak on behalf of the entire hive. And
then you have the hive that shows up behind them, and they're like, yeah, and here's a repetition, and here's an amplification, and it's kind of
right.
like, and that's that's kind of like, to bring it back around to my original issue with the Me Too movement. I think once it got hijacked by people that had a political agenda, suddenly it wasn't about sexual misconduct and rape.
Well, do you remember the very first, I think it was the Academy Awards, where they all wore black to it?
Josh, I don't remember the very first Academy Awards.
No. I mean, the first awards event after the Me Too thing broke, and all the female actresses wore black dresses, and they all wore their Time's Up pins. But it was amazing. If you go back and watch those awards, not one of them called out the union for not protecting women against sexual assault, or called out their constituents in the business. The entire conversation pivoted immediately to funding female filmmaking and elevating more women to positions of power within the business. So this was,
2017 or so, maybe 2018?
Yeah, it might have been, I think it was 17, because it was after the election. So it would have been maybe late 16, early 17.
But this was before Harvey Weinstein was even indicted then, right? Like,
yes.
And I'm sure nobody named him during the ceremony.
Well, if you remember, Rose was like the first person screaming about Harvey Weinstein, and a couple other people. And then, because if you remember, Asia Argento was one of the very first people to really rail against Harvey Weinstein as well. And Rose and Asia Argento were kind of like the canaries in the coal mine on Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
But Harvey Weinstein was an open joke. Like, I went to a screening of the movie Big Eyes, which was a Weinstein production. Amy Adams was in it. It was a pretty good movie. It was about a famous painter. But anyway, I went into the bathroom, and while I was in the bathroom taking a piss, Harvey came in and took a piss next to me. And when I walked out, somebody was like one of the people that I did not know that was in line to go to the bathroom was like, "Oh, I saw Weinstein follow you in there. Did he rape you?" And then in the bathroom, it was like, that was an open joke that everyone in the business just understood and made. And I was like, I wish he fucking offered. I'd love to be in a movie. So it's like, as if he whipped it, if he was like, suck this and I'll give you a part, I'd be like, right away, sir. Not in that movie though. That movie was not great. But
if you look at his list of production credits, I mean, I think he had, what did he have? Miramax? What was his distribution company? Like, he didn't even, he didn't emerge as a creative. He wasn't like part of the production process, or the writing. Like, he was a distributor. That's how he made all his money.
Well, he started as a concert promoter. He was like a live events and concert promoter in the Midwest. I think
in Buffalo, New York.
In Buffalo, New York, and then just sort of like just steamrolled his way into filmmaking. So,
and his brother, there's a Weinstein brother.
That's Harvey and what's the brother's name?
Harvey and other Weinstein, who ran everything together right up until Harvey went to jail, and then the other guy just kind of like walked off with all the money,
They split their Bob Weinstein was the other one. And he ran, so they had 2 companies in the beginning. They had Miramax, and then they had, if you remember, Dimension Films, which made the Scream movies. They basically made like the titty horror flicks from the 90s to the early 2000s.
And the PG-13 ones were the titty nope horror flicks.
Right. But anyway, they had those 2 companies, and then eventually when they left Disney, it all became the wine. Well, I think they sold Miramax
to Disney. Yeah.
And they kept Dimension, and then they rebranded their thing the Weinstein Company, which was TWC, and that was what they started doing their own distribution. Because originally after Miramax was acquired pretty early on by Buena Vista Pictures, which is Disney.
Yeah.
And so their distributor originally was Buena Vista, and then maybe Disney made Harvey leave at some point.
So, I mean, they had to know, though. They had to know, because Disney, if you're going to do a deal at that level, you're talking about multiple tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. If you're talking to a guy like Harvey Weinstein about buying his company, you have to know every fucking person that he fucked and every person that he screwed. Like, they knew the baggage that they were taking on. They had to have, because they have their own intelligence agencies and stuff. Like, how did they not?
Well, this is probably an unpopular opinion, but it wasn't an issue for Harvey Weinstein because Harvey wasn't the only one. Just like John Gruden is not the only coach calling people faggot and pussy and making bad jokes, but the sacrificial lambs are to get the heat off of everyone else's back. And so Harvey was just probably...
So Harvey was a little bitch.
Well, he's the loudest. He's the biggest bully. He's the most egregious. He's the perfect poster child for, we fixed it, guys. Like, we got rid of the big bad gargoyle. And meanwhile, there's all these other guys that are just as bad in the business, that have just as bad reputations. Guys like Brett Ratner. And, there's been so many other allegations made against so many other high level producers that, it's just a guy like Weinstein is easy to get rid of and say we solved the problem, rather than really dive in and say, man, there are some female executives, by the way, in Hollywood that are horrendous. If you remember the show Californication, they had Kathleen Turner on in their later seasons, and her character was modeled after one of these female executives in Hollywood who was notorious for forcing agents to sleep with her, forcing clients to sleep with her. Like, she was the female Harvey for decades. Existed and I think this woman goes back to the 70s, and that was just the way it worked. And so, the reason everybody turned a blind eye to it was because it wasn't a Harvey problem, it's a Hollywood problem. So and that was just the business forever. Do you think that
without Rose McGowan, I mean, was Rose McGowan like jumping on the gravy train, or do you think Harvey would have went down anyway? Because
they would have took him down. He's the easy target. He's the easy target. Same with John Gruden. I mean, John Gruden is one of the oldest active coaches, right? He was away from the game for a decade. Then he came back. He represents the old guard of NFL coaching, straight white Catholic conservative, by the way.
Yeah.
Of course he's the easy sacrificial lamb. And then what they'll do is what they're going to use this whole Gruden thing for is they're going to Donald Sterling Daniel Snyder out of owning the Washington football team, because they want Jeff Bezos as an owner partner in the NFL. Well, they can't force a guy to sell his franchise unless they do a Donald Sterling type thing.
Well, if the NFL wasn't nonprofit, Jeff Bezos would already own it. I mean,
right. So my point is, they have all these affiliate deals with Amazon. If you watch an NFL game, there's like 55 Amazon commercials over the course of a 3-hour game. They want his money in the league. And then they also want to bring in some more of these sort of like woke owners. And so the way to do that, to get the Daniel Schneiders and the Mark Davises out, is to sort of give them the Donald Sterling treatment and say, well, you participated in behavior that is conduct unbecoming of a member of our league, and therefore we can strip you of your franchise ownership because of that. That's all they're doing. That's what this is about. It has nothing to do with is John Gruden really a racist or a homophobe?
Do you think they're going to chase John Gruden out of the country for saying faggot and pussy when they've chased Rose McGowan out of the country for one tweet about Bill Clinton?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I also think Rose is a bit of a grifter in the sense that I think she does like to embellish things, and she plays the victim, which I don't like about her at all. Like, no matter what side. She's
an actress. I mean, she is. She's projecting her best role.
She on the right now, she's like, I get death threats and people are trying to kill me. And, she's absolutely this sort of like paranoid messiah in her mind, and she just reeks of inauthenticity to me, and I think she's totally full of shit with half
Although
the stuff.
if you look at the way she was brought up, like if you believe the shit about the cult and you consider how easy it was for her to walk into an entire career spanning 3 decades of like premier stuff, and like I don't know about her critical reception. In other words, I haven't watched enough of her stuff to say whether or not I judge her as a good actress or not.
She never did anything that was like considered like critically. She was never critically acclaimed, but she stayed working a ton. And
she's prolific. She's the definition of prolific.
Let's not even like one of the biggest things she did is a TV show that most people don't remember, but she was on that show Charmed for like a decade
as a replacement character actor.
Yeah. So,
and she ran away with it. Like that's impossible. That like, can you imagine anybody coming in on season 3 of Star Trek and replacing Spock and actually running away with it?
And then having a more memorable presence on the show than Spock. Right. Yeah. So she's had a pretty long run. I think what her being in the cult or raised in the cult tells us the same thing with people that come out of Scientology, the same thing with people whose parents work in politics or whatever. These people are master manipulators. They know how to get what they want out of people. And I think early in her career, she knew she could use her body and sex as a way to get what she wanted. And then as she aged out of being able to do that, she turned being a victim of her own choices to paint herself as a tragic figure and to gain sympathy and to sort of martyr herself, right? Like, oh, I gave so much of my innocence to this business because it's this evil monster.
Meanwhile, it's, a $500,000 a show contract kind of a deal where it's like you have 3 hours of filming to do. Here's $500,000. Yeah.
Right.
But, that goes back to, again, her upbringing. Like if you were raised in a cult that teaches you that sexual domination is the way to get ahead.
Yeah.
And then you get ahead
take that out into the world.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just a learned skill. It's a learned skill. And I'll tell you, it's interesting. I'll talk to people in the business and they'll use this example. They go like, I don't understand why people love Jennifer Lawrence and why she gets so much work and why she's won so many awards. And it's like, I'll tell you why. She's a girl who never went to high school. She's been in the business since she was a teenager, and she's a fun party fuck girl. Like she'll hang out. She'll get drunk with anybody. She hasn't ever. When has Jennifer Lawrence ever told on anybody? You don't think Jennifer Lawrence has sucked a dick for a part or fucked a guy for a part?
Well, there's plenty of women and men who have never told on anybody. Look at Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
He told on somebody in a pub 12 years ago and got his show canceled. Like the most successful film about Jesus Christ of all time got canceled because Mel Gibson ran his mouth about somebody in Hollywood. Like it's not just the girls that fall for it. It's the guys too.
Well, it's not about falling for it.
I'm gonna interject with something that I did say, and obviously we all know about trolls and how invasive they can be. But I was actually watching Rose doing a live on her Instagram, and it was quite it's actually quite sad because somebody in the chat made a comment to the effect of essentially making fun of the alleged rape with Weinstein. And she legitimately, you could see her playing that back and going back in that moment. And she stopped like her live stream like temporarily. And I mean, yes, she's an actress, but being one myself, I can see that look. I can empathize with that look, and you could tell it took her back to that moment. So I do believe that some of this is definitely rooted in truth whenever it comes to her. I know I'm playing devil's advocate here, that it's not agreed on.
Well, here's the thing. When somebody like Rose comes out and like takes the establishment to task, hell yeah, I support that. Like, she could be, I mean, this could be a different issue entirely. Like the basis of the issue is that she's being stalked by a system that tried to take advantage of her sexually and then program her and then try to puke her out because she came out against him. I am definitely on her side. Yeah. Absolutely.
And if I want to go down the conspiracy theory route, I believe that a lot of people that are part of the Hollywood culture are products of MK. It's
here
just
we go.
my belief here.
Here we go, Josh. You're on a conspiracy podcast.
Before we get to the top of Laurel Canyon on this, what I'll say is, I don't doubt that people that are in the practice of manipulating other people experience trauma as a side effect of it. I don't think women that fuck their way to the top of any industrial thing look themselves in the mirror like a sociopath at the end of the day and are fine with it. I do think there's trauma associated with it. Where they lose my empathy is it's like, okay, if you play with fire, you're going to get burned. You cannot wade into those waters and choose to play that game and then expect empathy from me because it backfired or you experience trauma as a side effect of it. Because I reserve my empathy for the women who didn't do anything to put themselves in that situation. And God knows there are plenty of those. Plenty of women who were minding their own business, who were stalked and attacked and assaulted, not pursuing wealth and fame, right? So excuse me if I have less empathy for women who, get shot on their way to war versus women who are minding their own fucking business, who were attacked.
No, it's fair because there's plenty of people who are pursuing wealth and fame honestly and not fucking people and not getting screwed over, both men and women.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you know what? Okay. Did you do your best? Yeah. Were you honest? Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Did you try to deceive people? No. I mean, but the math is different. Like so there's this whole other class and this like, I started to figure this out when I worked for a billionaire, when I was 2 steps removed from a billionaire as an employee. And I began to understand how differently billionaires look at the world than we do. Like those equations, like we just talked through a couple of moralistic equations. They do not run those equations. And that's, I kind of feel like that maybe that's why they look a little bit different. Like, not to do a hard segue here, but I saw a picture of Bezos today. The guy looks different. And so does Zuckerberg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the question becomes, is their success, it's like chicken and egg, is having that mindset what makes them a successful billionaire, or is having that success, does it shape you into that person? Because I can tell you, I've met people that aren't billionaires who behave that way, like you just described, where they don't run moral equations. They have a very binary way of looking at things. They have no patience for anything. They see absolutely no value in the people that they deal with. Everything is transactional. Everything is get me what I need right now. There's no empathy in how they interact with people. But I've seen people that are like that before they become rich or successful. So my question, I guess, for you guys is, what does one have to do with the other? Do you think people are that way and then that is what allows them to have that wild success? Or do you think that kind of money changes you into someone who thinks that way and treats people that way?
So do you think narcissism makes people successful?
I think it's a double-edged sword. I think for some people that have that sociopathic narcissistic personality and don't care what back they step on in order to gain that level of success. I think that's a true thing. And at the same time, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So those people, as they begin to rise up and become, these people of so-called power, I believe that they become corrupt in the making of that person.
Well, they see the shortcuts. Like you gain a little leverage, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, do I use this leverage over here? And then it happens again. And you're like, oh shit, it happened twice. Do I use it this time? Like there's people that are on this pattern of political advantageousness where you know, and sometimes I don't even think they cause it. I think there's people that end up in positions of political wealth that have no idea how they even got there. Like, I think AOC is one of these. I don't.
Prime example. Yeah, I don't. But I do think the position has changed her since she got that power and into office. I think she's become more like the people we're talking about.
The light bulb turned down. She saw a different set of rules, and she's like, "Oh, okay, shit, I can run with this."
Well, and I almost wonder if these different industries attract those types. Like tech attracts those types because all you got to do is have a good song and dance, and you can get people with hundreds of millions of dollars to hand it to you if they think your idea is important. And it's the same with Hollywood. Like, it's amazing to me how many of my constituents, and I always say, like, the thing that works against me the most is that I have a healthy sense of self-doubt. So, like, I don't mow through things as like, I don't work as hard through things as people who have this undeniable sense of self, because I have doubt in the way. Like, there are times I go, man, is this the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Is this even what I want to do? Is this good enough? Those things slow you down. And so the most productive people often are the people who have an unhealthy sense of self-entitlement. And it's like people that, come to Hollywood and they're like, I'm destined, I'm chosen, nothing will get in my way. It's like those people put a lot of work in and are very productive because they have no doubt. And so in a weird way, it's like these industries that reward that type of mindset absolutely attracts the people that think that way, that are narcissistic and have like a delusional sense of self-worth and a delusional sense of purpose. Like, oh, no, I'll make it. Like, there's no, oh, will I make it? Or is this what I'm meant to do? It's just, I'll make it because I fucking decided so. And, I don't know how much of that is good and how much of that is bad, because obviously some of it is good because those people go on to, for a lot of cases, go on to have wild success. But I just don't think you can fake that. Like, I can't pretend to never have doubt in myself or to never question myself. Like, that's just not who I am. Like, I have doubts all the time, and there are certain things that I like about me and certain things that I try to work on about myself, and I'm pretty transparent about all of that. So, it's
well, you spent the first 10 minutes like in the pre-show telling us about a bunch of bullshit that you're going through. So that's definitely an authentic thing. But
yeah, and it's just to me, I've watched the liars get caught so much that it's just like, it's not worth it. You know what I mean? Like, there are so many circumstances where manipulators eventually it catches up to them, right? Like, who was it? Lincoln, who had the quote of "No man is good enough at lying to lie his entire life," or something like that. So
we should, you and I should do a one-off on Jankum just about Lincoln. So if you ever have a slow week, email me. And
when I'm ready to destroy the viewership that I do have, I will do an hour-and-a-half podcast about Abraham Lincoln.
There you go. I mean, that's pretty much how it happens.
I almost fell asleep at the suggestion. Just, yeah, sure.
You know who's doing really good with that kind of shit is the Canadians. There's some Canadian podcasts that are just eating American history alive. It's pretty entertaining. So we are going to move on to a segment we call Only in Florida. And I've got a couple stories that I just want to share with you because, Josh, I know that you came from the Northeast and the upper Midwest, but now you live in California. And how long have you been out there in the LA area?
Since 2009.
Ooh, are you... oh, wow. He's doing really good. He's still questioning things? He's still fighting back? This is good.
Yeah.
They call it the left coast where we're from. But over here in Florida, we have the most ridiculous...
Well, that's a question that I actually had for you, Josh, is we get these, like, you hear about Florida Man and stuff like that. Does Florida Man exist in California? Like,
yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. There's these characters, and I'll zone in from California, particularly like LA and Hollywood. Is the Florida Man equivalent in Hollywood and LA is like almost every bar you go to that's been around for more than 20 or 30 years in LA has this regular at it, and he's like a guy who looks homeless, and you find out the guy owns like 3 fucking buildings in LA, and he's a multimillionaire, and he literally just hangs out. And so like there's like this weird sort of like hippie multimillionaire, like generational wealthy person hanging on in Hollywood, which is sort of like just that to me is what I think of when I think of like LA. I think of those guys, like the guy
Well, if
who
you're going
hangs
to do
out.
do it with land. That's the ultimate. I mean, you pay taxes on it. That's it. The lowest tax rate in the world is property tax. So that's the way to do it if you're going to do it multi-generationally.
Yeah, I think
It's like Beverly Hills is filled with these people where it's like somebody inherited a house from their grandparents like 30 years ago, and
Old Uncle Jed, the Beverly Hillbillies. Like,
and they drive like a shitty car, and they have a $17 million house. It's so weird.
our Florida man, I think, is quite a bit different from.
He is not a Californian landowner at all, like 3 generations removed. So how about this one, Josh? Man attempts trading in a car to the dealer he stole it from.
Oh yeah, that's a Florida. That's a Florida all the way.
Did you hear about this one, Jazz?
I haven't yet.
All right.
I read about this.
A Lake City man tried to trade in a vehicle this week, but instead of a new car, he ended up with multiple charges. You know, they always go for the irony in the first line. Like these journalism graduates, I have a real hang up. Josh, as you get to know me, you're going to know that I just have a real problem with the way these 22-year-olds write these. Scion. Do not use the word scion in anything you write. Otherwise, I will know that you are a recent graduate of English.
Well, and they all fancy themselves intellectual comedians in some way. So they, it's almost like they're all posturing for a job they'll never get in their writing.
It's actually impossible to be funny if you're under the age of about 25 or 26 because nobody that young is ever funny. But Florida man is very funny. And it says on Monday, the Lake City Police Department was dispatched to 43 to a report of a stolen vehicle. This was the address of the dealership. Upon arrival, officers spoke to employees who advised that an individual came to the dealership and was attempting to trade his current vehicle for a new one. However, employees say upon checking the vehicle's VIN number, they discovered the vehicle was stolen from the dealership's lot just a few days prior. Police say after being advised of his rights by officers, the customer, identified as Timothy Wolf, admitted to stealing the vehicle from the dealership lot. Okay, that sentence right there, as a libertarian, they Mirandized him prior to charging him. I'm just going to play devil's advocate since we're doing that tonight and say that that's illegal as fuck. This guy definitely did something wrong, though. Mm-hmm. Additionally, a review of the dealership's closed-circuit camera system showed the crime occurring. Wolf was arrested and transported to the Columbia County Detention Center without further incident. He was charged with grand theft auto, dealing in stolen property, criminal mischief, and petty theft. I mean, that's balls.
This is such
right?
To me, it's such a modern millennial crime, though, of him being like, well, I you know what? At night, the color looked different than it does in the day, and I feel like I stole the wrong car. Maybe they'll just let me swap it out for something else. Like that seems like something a young person would do these days. Like, I know I stole it, but I'm unhappy with it. Maybe they'll make it right.
Maybe I don't have enough credit yet. That if I steal something that's like a nice newer car and everything,
maybe I've never had a
more
job
appealing. Yet. So they'll overlook my shitty credit score that way because I've got a nice trade.
I mean, I've got the collateral already. They should give me the loan.
Yeah.
He just walks in. He goes, boy, do I have a deal for you guys.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to trade you this Beamer for your Toyota.
Exactly what you're missing.
It was Lake City Chrysler Dodge Jeep. I don't even... How do you actually steal a car from a car lot? I mean, there's like...
Well, Rose McGowan even said she learned how to hotwire cars when she was a kid.
Yeah, but they have all this wireless ignition and everything now. Like, does your car have an actual thing where it inserts the key to the ignition?
No.
Neither does mine. Like, that's kind of where we're at. Thank you, Detroit. I had one more from First Coast News. Josh, you're going to like this one. Naked woman taunts police using golf cart.
Nice.
This is a Florida woman story. Dunedin, Florida. And I love Dunedin, Florida, because there's no other place in the world called Dunedin except in Lord of the Rings. It says a more peculiar development perhaps happened late Sunday night during a 6-hour standoff between deputies and an armed man on top of a roof. Now that's Florida enough. It says deputies were called to the area of Fairway Drive and Harrison Drive in Dunedin about 3 suspicious men said to be in the neighborhood. Authorities eventually arrested 18-year-old Miles Abbott, who was accused of getting on top of a roof and pointing a gun at deputies. Who the fuck does that? I mean, that's pretty stupid, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know how Collier County is. Like, you point a gun at one of these dudes, you're done.
No, I've taken calls where.
Oh, so Jazz used to be a dispatcher for the sheriff's department.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so did my mom.
Yeah, I actually took a call where a woman had
Was
locked
that
her-
a passive aggressive insult?
No, it wasn't. No,
Okay.
my mom actually,
All right, fair,
no,
fair
my
enough.
mom actually was a dispatcher. No,
Okay.
she was.
Yeah.
It was like 20 years ago. It was when I was in high school. But yeah, she had that job for I don't know, and not
Yeah,
very
this was
long.
20 years ago for me. Hey.
Yeah,
Wait, Josh, how old is your mom, man?
old enough to be my mom.
Okay.
That's
right.
always, by the way, that's the right answer for anyone who's ever on a podcast and they're asked that question about their mother.
Yes, indeed. So what happened?
Yeah, so this woman, she actually she held herself up in a hotel here in beautiful Naples, Florida, in one of our finer establishments. And she called the police to say that there was a black man in the hallway, which was the deputy. And
Oh, God. Here we
and
go.
she fired a
Hashtag
couple
me
shots
too.
through the hotel door
Oh, my God.
at them. And yeah, she was a frequent flyer. We were used to her phone calls. She believed that UFOs would fly over her house and talk to her cats. So she was.
I have a
I
slight
swear.
amount of sympathy for that kind of stuff, though.
This is an honest to God, like, true story.
right.
Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
when
I've-
people have my pets talk to me and I see aliens, it's like, no, you have a mental illness. Like you get
Right.
one. Everybody gets one thing and then I'll believe you. But if you have 2 of the things, you're crazy.
yeah.
Like, I
so-
throw away Cheetos that aren't shaped right. Yeah, fuck you. That's not true. But anyway, go
Well,
ahead.
yeah, but that can be your thing, but you can't do that and see aliens. Like,
Right.
nope.
True.
Sorry, you don't get 2. Nobody gets 2. And if you have 2, you're crazy. If you have 1, I believe you.
So she shot
You can't
a
go- you can't
deputy
go, I believe
because he
in-
was black?
There were 8 men in the hall, deputies, and they knew she was armed. So
She was holed up in a hotel room?
yeah, she made the phone call from the hotel.
Dare we say which hotel it was here in Naples?
It was the old what was the one at Golden Gate Parkway and Collier Boulevard?
Oh, brother. I don't know.
It was really yucky.
Was
Okay.
it a motel?
Yeah.
No, she said it had a hallway. I mean, I've never been there. So.
I do. That is a weird. That is like a weird part of my start in stand up that I do kind of miss. Is like when I first started, we would do a lot of these shitty one nighters in like small towns in the Midwest, and then we would always stay in like the motel of the town, which was always like this little tiny, place where where a serial killer definitely hid out for a night. And that was such a fun, in hindsight, like it sucked at the time because I was a pompous 20-something-year-old spoiled bitch. But in hindsight, I was
I mean,
like,
you
that
couldn't
was
have been
fun.
that spoiled. I mean,
Well, no, because I had a corporate job for so many years where I would travel and I would stay in fucking Hamptons and
That's right.
Hiltons and stuff
Yeah.
all the time. And so then when I started to do stand up, and these bars would put us in like the local motel for the night, and it was it's like that's your choice. There isn't like a good one and a bad one. There's just the one they have. And in hindsight, I was like, I should have enjoyed that more. You know what I mean? Like there is some sort of like weird sort of Fargo sense of adventure that came along with staying in those plaplaces.
It's rustic.
There's actually, okay, so we have a local comedy club here, which, Nigel had talked about trying to pimp you out to, and get you on. But now they use the Hampton Inn, as you were saying, for
nice,
to put,
fancy,
right?
You say Hampton Inn, I'm like, ooh.
In Bonita Springs,
there's a microwave there.
Yes, a microwave and a mini fridge. But before there was actually, I wish I knew which comedian it was. Because they put him up at this place. It's called the Spinnaker. I like the Spinnaker Inn or something like that.
Yeah,
and there's there is a legitimate sex room,
nice. And put me in the sex room.
And he took he went live on his Facebook or whatever. And, it has the chair and everything, and there's mirrors and there's a stripper pole and all of this stuff.
This is in a motel.
This is right on Pine Ridge Road.
There's one room called the sex room.
Well, it's not called that, but
but it's a fuck room.
It's
a room designed
yeah.
for fucking.
Yeah. Absolutely. And they
so
actually
if you go in there, you have to understand that everything has to be immediately sprayed down with rubbing alcohol. Like the entire room.
Well,
has
I'm
to be
gonna let you in on a little secret. You should probably do that at every hotel you ever stay at.
Yeah,
they're
probably
all equally gross. One of my friends, comedian out of Minneapolis, a guy named Chris Maddock, has a hilarious joke on his album where he's like, yeah, my sister was like, do you know how much semen is all over those hotel rooms? And he goes, I know at least how much. Like, I don't care how much, as long as the top layer is mine. Such a great joke. He's an amazing, funny guy who still lives in Minnesota. Very funny comic.
Yeah, and apparently he likes to come a lot too. So
yeah,
but that just makes him a normal dude.
Yeah, pretty normal.
So the Spinnaker is the place, and
yeah, but they after this comedian went live and called out the comedy club, they no longer use the Spinnaker, and now you get the lovely Hampton Inn in Bonita
is that
Springs.
because the Spinnaker posted some dumb shit about the comedy club on Twitter?
No, this is a common thing that comics do now, where if the accommodations are shitty, they'll go live or they'll blog about it. 5-6 years ago, a lot of comics were blogging about comedy condos, and then clubs just started selling them or stopping. They quit using them and started using hotels because they were just getting so much shit about how bad their accommodations were.
Well, I mean, okay, let's talk about that for a second, because I figure if you're going to do what is it? They do 5 live shows in a week there, or 4 live shows a week. Let's not name it because they're not a sponsor.
5.
So it's 5 nights a week live show, and then they have jam night on.
Well, they usually have if they book somebody for the weekend, they'll have 2 on Friday, 2 on Saturday, and 1 on Sunday.
Okay, so three from one performer, and then the rest it's going to be locals and jam night and stuff like that, right?
Not necessarily. They'll bring somebody in on Wednesday, Thursday, but it's usually
But they're selling tickets 5 nights a week.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're selling tickets 5 nights a week, that means you have to staff dinner. They do 2 shows during weeknights or just on the weekends?
Just on the
weekends. So 1 show during the week, 2 shows weekends.
Yeah.
And it's kick you out. No matter if you only had 2 drinks, we're still kicking you out. You got to get to the next, because everybody has tickets for the next show, right?
Oh, yeah. You've been there. They have to turn the room around and get it ready for the next show.
So if you own a comedy condo and you're renting it to comics for, 10% of their fee? Something like that? There's got to be a way. Even in Naples, where they're renting out 4-bedroom houses for $10,000 a month right now. If you have a loft apartment with 350 feet, that's worth $1,000 a month, $1,200 a month, at least. Can you cover that on the nets from a month's worth of comic appearances?
It's really about cutting out the cost of a hotel, because do the math on what a hotel would cost for the entire month. As long as the condo is less than that, then that's why the club would benefit doing the condo. If a hotel room is $150 a night, and you're doing that for however many nights, let's call it 20 of the month, most rentals aren't going to cost you what it would cost to have a hotel for the
the
entire...
hotel here is like $150 a night if you want to spend $75 for an Uber to get to the comedy club. Like, it's fucking ridiculous.
Well, but clubs don't really give a shit about that
they don't.
when they factor that stuff in either. So like, they don't care what, I will tell you, if I ever had a club that did that to me, I would be like, yeah, I'm not paying that, or you're going to pay me for the transportation.
We do have.
You would kill it here, by the way, Josh.
We do have someone here in the chat that says, "Can I get Josh Denny merch anywhere?"
Yeah,
we
where's
just
Josh
saw
Denny merch?
something about some Jankum merch.
Yeah, just go to my website, joshdennycomedy.com, and then you click on store. You get all the Jankum merch. I just made some stuff for cold weather gear, and you can get all kinds of stuff on there.
So your relatives are extremely hot. Like, I'm not even going to joke around. Like, none of them have a red colored beard. Like, they're all like extremely hot models. Like, how did you get born into this beautiful family? And they're all wearing yellow.
Who are you talking? Oh yeah, no, that's not. Yeah, those are what they call stock. What do they call them? Stock mock-up images. I don't know how the technology works where they take the stuff I create and put it on pictures that already exist. That's out of my purview, but it's pretty cool.
Well, if your shit is as hot as it looks, then you definitely need to order it right now, everybody. So getting back to our last Florida man story, and then we can wrap it up as soon as that's done. This was the one about the standoff where a woman ended up driving and taunting the police naked in a golf cart. It says, amid the standoff, 28-year-old Jessica Smith drove by on a golf cart completely naked and passed several sheriff's officers' cruisers. According to the arrest report, one officer reported giving Smith commands as she approached the house where Abbott was on the roof. She refused to get out on the golf cart when asked, the report said. Officers eventually got her out and handcuffed her. Because of her actions, authorities believe she put herself at risk of being shot.
What?
Yeah, I know, right? That's the spin factor. Like, do you think, like...
I just... What?
Yeah.
Put her at risk for being shot?
Yeah, okay.
Shot maybe by film.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
If I saw a 28-year-old woman driving around naked on a golf cart, I would probably even pull out my camera and videotape that.
Yeah, but what if she has my body? That's the problem.
Well, I mean, if she's a bearded woman, then you have to film it just for the novelty.
Such as bad publicity.
Yeah,
that's true too.
I don't know. If she looked like me, I'd shoot her. I'll just be frank with you guys. If I saw a naked female version of myself, I'd be like, we got to put this one down for the
Josh. If I saw a male version of yourself going against the cops on a golf cart butt naked, I would probably retweet it as fuck. I'm just here to tell you.
Yeah, fortunately, I don't find myself in too many nude standoffs with the police.
Right. Well, that's fair enough. All right, Josh, how does everybody get a hold of you? Let us know how to get a hold of you.
Just go to my website, joshdennycomedy.com. You can find links to all my social, my store, my podcast, and my show on censored.tv next week tonight. You can find it all there.
Next week tonight, censored.tv. Check out Josh. Very much libertarian slant, which I appreciate.
Yes.
Jazmine Star, how does everybody get a hold of you?
You can reach me at star_light_readings on Instagram and on Twitter at Jazmine Star 239.
And the star there is always with 2 R's.
Yeah, JAZMINESTARR.
Okay, and anybody else that's interested, Jazmine also does psychic reading, and she is a talented medium, naplespsychic.com. I am Nigel Kent, and I can be reached at NigelKent239 on Twitter, as well as trouble at trouble239.com. Josh Denny, we appreciate you, man. You're very much a hero to us. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it was always a blast.
And as Precious Frito says, well, you better say the first thing first, right? Stay out of trouble.
Stay out of trouble.
You stay out of trouble, Josh. And then also, how do you turn